So, do you have anything fun planned this weekend?
Well, my girlfriend's flying to South Carolina. I'll meet up with her on Tuesday, but I'm going to spend the weekend on my boat by myself probably, which will be really nice.
Yeah,
Work on the boat and relax and have a little me time. How about yourself?
I like it. We actually might go to Bend, Oregon. Some friends of ours are having a holiday party, and so we're thinking we might drive out there. Depends on how the roads look.
How far is that from where you live?
It's about 120 miles, like 2 hours of driving. Not bad.
That's not bad. And you have friends there?
Mhm.
Well, good.
We have actually a lot of friends there. We go there and teach dance, and we do dance events out there.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely want to talk about your dance world that you're in.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Welcome to Down and Dirty with Michael Julian. On the show, we're getting raw, real, and leaving no stone unturned. Each week, I sit down with some truly remarkable people who have overcome adversity in their lives. My guests are warriors who took their pain and turned it into power. So get comfortable because we're about to get down and dirty.
Well, let's jump into it. My guest today is D'Leene DeBoer. I guess that's French or something, maybe?
So it's an Irish name with a made-up French spelling.
Okay.
Literally the only me on Google. Like in the hospital, staff have to cross out their last name. I have to cross out my first name because that's how you find me. And then my last name is my husband's, which is Dutch.
Oh, okay. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Well, D'Leene, we know each other because you're a phenomenal writer. You've been writing you've been writing articles and stuff and helping me with some things. You've got a bunch of different layers. I mean, when I'm looking forward to digging in, but where are you from? Where did you start? Where did D'Leene hatch?
Yeah. So my parents, they're the kind of people who really had no business having children. We moved around a lot. I was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but we, moved between Las Vegas and California and all over the place. I have 3 siblings, 2 younger sisters and a baby brother, and I grew up kind of being their mom in a lot of ways and looking out for them.
Was drugs an issue, or what made them not qualify to be parents?
They grew up in very abusive homes, and I know, looking back, I know that they did the best that they could with what they had, but they still just were incredibly toxic and abusive themselves
To each other?
to each other, to us. Lots of mental and emotional abuse and physical. My parents didn't really drink. They smoked marijuana, which a lot of people don't think of as a big deal, but when the way that they used it in excess, it really was a big deal, and it impacted our family a lot.
So it was a liability rather than an asset. It didn't help them sleep. It helped them be not great parents.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
And so you were the big sister to, you said 2 sisters and a brother?
2 sisters and brother, yeah.
And they were all younger than you.
Yeah.
Tell me something about that. Tell me some stories where your parents weren't there and you had to be for them.
Yeah. So, I mean, and this kind of part of my journey was doing a retrospective analysis and root cause and looking at different things that happened in my life. And like some of the first memories that I have were my middle sister, who's only 18 months, we're only 18 months apart, me helping change her diaper because our dad was sleeping and our mom was away working. And one of the distinct memories that I have that has shaped a lot of who I am and why I'm so spicy now. My dad is very misogynistic, and despite our multiracial, multi-ethnic heritage, he's very racist. And so one of the things that I remember him doing, I was about 3 years old, and he had me sitting with him, and he just was like, women aren't capable of doing everything that men can do. And I don't know where that seed was planted, but I knew in my heart there was just like, that doesn't, and it landed so strongly that I remember that I was like, that's not right. Like, I just knew there was this feeling of knowing. And so that really shaped a lot of how I moved forward.
Did your mother disagree with that? Was she verbal about her disagreement with that? I mean, where did that come from that you just instinctively knew, wait a minute, was it instinctive or had you learned it from somewhere that
I'm sure that I recognize we never get where we are without seeds being planted,
Right.
and so that's where I was like, I don't know where the seed was planted. I know my mom is an incredibly strong woman. She never gave herself the credit. She grew up in a very, very abusive home. And as a result, she allowed my dad to make all the decisions and she never inserted herself, but I saw her strength and I saw how she pushed our family forward and took care of us.
Oh, and you said your dad was sleeping and your mom was at work. Was that typical?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so dad was a little bit lazy.
Yeah.
And mom was a strong woman.
Yeah.
Which would you say that she was the backbone of that family?
Yeah. 100%.
So probably, I don't want to speak for you, but it sounds like if she wasn't verbal about it, you being able to witness her being strong and take care of business proved that your dad was full of shit, and that wasn't actually the case.
Exactly. Yeah, there was that. Like, I don't have conscious memories of what it was, but I know looking back on it that she demonstrated that she was strong.
Okay. What about the you said your dad was racist, but you had different ethnicities and so forth. What is your makeup between that family?
Yeah, so I learned a lot more when I did the 23andMe that we're Chickasaw Indian.
I can see that.
Learned that I'm Iranian and Persian Jew and Spanish and
Wow.
lots of layers. So it's so interesting. And my dad knows that we're Chickasaw Indian, so it was always interesting to me. And my dad looks like an Indian man.
So your father's Native American, and what was your mom?
So my mom is Czechoslovakian and Italian, which is also where Spanish comes from.
God, you have a lot of blood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My dad, that's the line where we have the Persian Jew and the Iranian and Native American.
Persian, Jew, Iranian, and Native American.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating mix that you don't hear much about.
No.
And you said your mom was Czechoslovakian
and Italian.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Which is also, when we look at my lineage, that's also where Spanish comes from.
So what was he? Was he racist against blacks and Mexicans, or
everyone?
Everyone.
Yeah, like it's there's a lot of self-hatred, so that's really where it comes from. But it really, because of his hate and judgment of other people, it really made me passionate about being an advocate when I look back at it now, because I was just like, what are you even saying? Yeah, he's an interesting character.
What kind of abuse did your dad go through?
Lots of physical, lots of neglect, emotionally. His dad was a truck driver, and he was a very big linebacker-sized dude who took his anger out on his kids and his wife a lot.
And so that's what your father grew up knowing. Was he physically abusive?
Yeah.
To everybody?
Yeah.
Like kick the shit out of you or just spank you real hard?
Yeah.
Did he?
Oh, my dad towards
Your
us.
Dad.
Oh, my dad towards us. He tried to do better. He believed in using a belt, and some of the things that really, till this day, stay with me was seeing him use that belt on my toddler siblings, just doing toddler stuff. And it just, the level of violence in that.
Unnecessary. Yeah, unnecessary force. Yeah. Did that improve as he got older?
I would say my dad had ended up, because of the people that we were around a lot, he ended up getting put in prison.
Prison, so felonies. What was that for?
It was for gun possession and marijuana.
Okay.
He wasn't legally supposed to have a gun. He didn't do anything bad with it. He just wasn't supposed to have it.
That means that he was a prior felon.
I don't really know what his prior things were.
Why? Do you know why he wasn't supposed to have a gun?
Okay. Yeah. A lot of that is part of it was during a time where, because he had marijuana in possession and the guns made it there because it wasn't legal when he got sent to prison.
Right.
Yeah,
Guns and illegal drugs together make
Yeah.
make it worse.
exactly. So when he was sent to prison, that was when we came to Oregon, and
Without him
with him because he got sent to the Sheridan Penitentiary
in Oregon,
in Oregon.
and that's why you guys moved out.
And that's why we moved out.
Got it.
That was one of those things where it seems like it would be devastating, but it was one of the best things that happened to our family. And him being put away for that amount of time, my mom
How long?
3 years. My mom was really able to be the leader of the family and
Without unobstructed, without his
unobstructed,
influence.
Without his influence. So the physical
How old were you?
abuse stopped. I was 10 when we moved. And then he got out when I was 13.
Okay, so you're just coming in, starting to be a female, like a woman or a older girl,
Mhm.
and so you're probably impressionable. I mean, you were a child before, now you're a tween,
Yeah.
and now you're starting to see your mother's strength when it can truly shine because dad wasn't there to push her down.
Right. Yeah, he wasn't there to tell her not to. He wasn't there to tell her to beat us with a belt. And so a lot of the physical abuse stopped. And then when he got out, we had already had 3 years of no physical abuse. So it just ended. He knew that he couldn't cross that line at that point.
What was your dad like when he got out? Was he different?
He was for a little while. He was better. But it lasted maybe 6 months. And then he was kind of back to being just himself. He also had started using marijuana again. And his personality is very different when he uses.
Sounds like he had a little bit of a chemical imbalance that, sounds like the marijuana unbalanced his chemicals. It sounds like he was a better person when he was off the drugs.
Well, and I know that he struggles with mental illness, and he, in his older age, has had some bouts with that. So it's
Depression, anxiety,
hospitalization, severe mental illness, not just
like paranoid schizophrenia or...
Not anything like that that he's been diagnosed. That runs in his side of the family, though. He had an uncle that was, and so I think he just had, and he did do some really heavy drugs when he was younger and had some head injuries and stuff. So you never know how the makeup of all of that is going to impact someone's expression of their mental illness.
What was his behavior like after he started smoking weed again, as opposed to before when he first got out and he was clean?
The aggression and the lack of thought in what he was saying, lack of care of anyone around him, really. He was definitely more thoughtful.
More compassionate, empathetic when he was not using.
When he was not using, yeah.
Well, that's a pretty good lesson in this day and age, considering how weed is legal damn near everywhere in America now.
Yeah.
Something for people to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now you're 13. He comes out. He's cool for 6 months. The family's cool. Then he starts smoking weed again and things start going downhill. Now you're 13. You're a freaking teenage female, which is a volatile, insane time in a young person's life.
Yeah.
So what were you up to? What were you doing?
I think for me, there was nothing normal about my childhood. Part of the blessing in us moving was my parents had us around people that were not good. And so I ended up being molested from the time I was 7 until I was 9.5. Basically, the only reason it ended was because we moved.
By a family friend?
By his best friend.
From 7 to 9.5. Did he ever find out?
I never told him. It was one of those things where during the time, though, of it was happening, it was this unspoken rule between me and this guy that as long as I let him touch me, he didn't touch my siblings. And my dad had always said if anyone ever touched us, he would kill them. And my dad would go to prison forever, and that would be my fault. So I just didn't say anything. Just let it let it be what it was. And there was, a lot of coping that happens in that of just shutting down. And I was a person who hit puberty really early. So I was like I was overflowing a C cup by the time I was 7 or by the time I was 10. And it was just like, it was all so much. So I did breast binding until I was 15.
I didn't even know that was a term. I mean, I knew that people wrapped bandages around their boobs, but I had no idea it was called breast binding. Okay. So you were probably embarrassed at your rapid maturation.
Yes. And I mean, luckily this was during the time when TLC was super popular. So I was like able to wear all the big baggy clothes and nobody knew, but it wasn't like a normal 13-year-old. I didn't have any of those normal 13-year-old experiences because I'd already been through so much. I was really quiet and I just cared about what was happening with my siblings. And some of the seeds that had been planted were, we were kept home. We weren't allowed to go to school.
What?
Yeah.
Who didn't allow you to school?
My parents.
Because
there is a quote, and it's, you can give someone a gift which will cause them to be dependent upon you, or you can give them the gift of knowledge which will allow them to be free. From that quote, I realized that the reason that my dad particularly wanted to keep us from education was to keep us from being free. It meant that he had more control over us. My mom wasn't even allowed to drive. Like, it was all about control and power.
So how did you learn about things you're supposed to learn about when you're that age?
Well, this is because of that experience that I had when I was 3. There was like this seed of spiciness that was planted in me. And I remember, because we were kept home, all we had really was the TV, and Oprah
Oh my God.
was so impactful for me. And she had her book club and she would talk about books and she talked about her experiences. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I want to learn how to read. Smart people know how to read. And so I remember watching Sesame Street, and there was a couple, I know that they probably knew it was bad, but she brought my mom a bunch of books from her kids that didn't need them anymore. And so I was like, I'm going to learn this stuff. I want to be smart. And so I used Sesame Street and taught myself how to read.
What about your siblings? And how old are you at this point?
I was 6 when that happened. And, my sister's 18 months younger than me, and my baby sister's about 3 years younger than me. So, and my baby brother's 7 years younger than me. So
okay. All right.
My baby brother wasn't born.
There's a lot to unpack here, and I've got a ton of questions. So I'm gonna stop and back up.
Yeah.
This is a big one. And I had no idea. Well, I don't know your personal life well enough to know this, but I had no idea even asking you, what was going on in your life. So you're molested from the time you're 7 to 9.5.
Yeah.
You allowed it to happen because you didn't want, the deal was he wouldn't touch your younger sisters.
Yeah.
So you chose not to tell anybody, including your father. Does your mother know?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So let me ask you this, D'Leene. Now that you're however old you are, I don't know if I should ask or not, or you want, actually, you said you'd tell me anything. How old are you?
I'm 42.
Okay. Now that you're 42 and you can process these things.
Wait, no, I'm just kidding. I'm 41. I'll be 42
in
next year, August.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So you're barely 41.
Yeah.
Okay. My question is this. Should you have done something different based on a 41-year-old woman's understanding of this situation, having lived through it?
Looking back, my parents didn't possess the ability to handle any of it. They barely possessed the ability to raise us as kids. We were on our own in a lot of ways and just doing well despite what we were going through. I don't know that I could have, honestly. I think...
I'm not asking you if you could have. I'm asking you if you should have. You're 41 years old. You're a grown woman. You know what's going on. What would you tell an 8-year-old girl today if she
Oh,
confided?
tell her parents.
So is that
to
not your
talk with.
answer?
Yeah. I mean, if I was talking to me as a kid, yes, that's what my answer would be. Having lived through it, that's a different, yeah.
Okay, so you would put more value on some other person's life than you put on your own.
I guess, yeah. Well, and I think for me, it wasn't until I got a little bit older that I had people who I could trust that would fight for me.
Let's go back to the question.
Yeah.
Regardless of the situation, you would tell someone else to save yourself and don't put yourself through that anymore, because your parents, shit or not, and I'm not saying your parents are shit. I'm saying in a worst case scenario, your parents are shit.
Yeah.
Regardless, you would not condone some little girl putting herself through that under any circumstances.
Yeah.
So let me ask you that question again.
Yeah.
Because you need to value yourself as much as you would value someone else.
Yeah.
Would you tell yourself, or would you have done it differently now, knowing that what you know as a 41-year-old woman? It's hard to answer that question because you're in the middle of all that shit.
Yeah.
But forget about what you know. Did you deserve to do that, and should you have changed that?
I didn't deserve it. And reflecting back on it, because I lived through it, I'm like, who would I have gone to that would have believed me and would have helped me? Because when you're in survival, and that's really what it was about for me. I was doing my best to survive my childhood. So the decisions that I made as a survivor were different from what I would do now. And so thinking in that situation, this is part of what I love about being a nurse, is I get to be an advocate for other people. I get to be that person who supports them while they overcome it. But when you're in that situation, you don't have somebody doing that for you, you're on your own.
Yeah.
So it would have made my experience harder and worse
To begin with.
because I didn't have the support to help me out of it.
And trust me, I don't want to sound like I'm being judgmental.
No, for sure. No,
I am digging.
It's such a great, it like, yeah, like I'm like, oh, like I'm thinking back, I'm like, who, if I was to tell myself, like, go to this person, and like, if I had me in my corner, I would be like, yeah, like, let's do it. But
you didn't have anybody to support you and encourage you and give you strength. You were a 7 or 8 or 9-year-old little girl on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's a right answer. I really wanted to pose that question to you to make you dig down deep. And when you started to talk about, well, it's okay that I did it, I wanted to make the point that really, was it okay that you allowed yourself to go through that?
No.
And not that a 7 or 8-year-old girl is going to feel comfortable calling 911 and telling the police.
Right.
But if you had an older you to help guide and support, it would have been a lot easier.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah.
So then, because this show's about lessons in life. Mm-hmm. This show is about telling stories that hopefully someone will listen to and go, oh my God, I can do what I can learn from that person's horrific experiences. So I'm just wondering, what is the lesson? What can we learn from this? What do we take out of this? Because you just said, yes, you should absolutely do that, but you wouldn't do it for yourself if you had it to do over again. And that's what that other next little girl is going to feel like.
Yeah.
So what is the solution? What is the answer? What can we learn from this? Do you find an older mentor to confide in and let them support you? I don't know. First of all, I'm not a woman. Yeah. I'll never know what it's like to be a woman. And I'm certainly not a 7 or 8-year-old girl. So how do we take this experience and make it something that will help other people?
This is why I became a volunteer crime victim advocate and crisis responder.
Say that again. It was first of all, you're quiet and you're mumbling.
This is why I became a volunteer crime victim advocate and crisis responder.
Crime victim advocate and crisis responder. So I didn't know that was a thing. Yeah. People can get involved in that.
People can get involved.
Is that a nationwide?
Your local district attorney's office.
Okay.
I know some places are better suited than others. There's also CASA, which is a court-appointed special advocate for working specifically with children. This, for me, and again, like Oprah was my seed planter. She talked about her experiences of being an abused
Wow.
victim. And so I knew that my experience, I was going to grow up one day and I was going to get out of it. And I was like, I want to help other people so that they don't have to go through this. And so then the responsibility and the lesson here is that adults in children's lives need to pay attention. I showed every sign of being a child who was
Abused.
pretty abused. And my sisters and brother showed every sign of children who were being not very well cared for.
And you didn't have family, friends close enough to, or that cared enough because they were whacked out on weed or whatever too.
Well, and my parents kept us isolated.
Yeah.
That was part of and that's part of the red flag, is when a family is being isolated.
Yeah.
So for me now, it's, when I notice that a child is showing signs of excessive flinching or maybe over modesty, talking with the family and making sure that they're educated about signs of abuse and how to support children through having that conversation and making sure that they know and have permission. Don't call children's body parts other things. It's a vagina. Call it a vagina. Because children who use anatomical terms are less likely to be abused than children who call it something that it's not.
That's interesting. I had no idea.
Yep.
Okay, so for any human being listening to this or watching this, what can we take out of this? What's the lesson? What would you tell anybody, a 7-year-old girl or anybody that might be experiencing this? What's the best way to handle this situation?
Being a safe space, being the safe space. So the way and the reason that people open up to me is that I am not judging them. I'm not being critical of what they're going through. I'm not holding expectations.
Wait, what's the safe space?
The safe space is who you are and how you come to the table. So but
a 7-year-old girl's not going to be able to do that.
No, not the 7-year-old girl. People around the 7-year-old girl.
Oh, be the safe space for that 7-year-old.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Because that's what it would have taken for me to trust someone enough.
But you didn't have anybody So you're not going to venture out and go, hey, help me, please.
Right.
You're going to keep it to yourself and hope it goes away. And you were fortunate enough to move, so it did go away.
Right.
You never confronted that person?
No.
Were they still alive?
I have no idea, actually.
Well, I can find them for you. I'd help you confront them.
I think for me,
I'll be your safe space while I'm beating his head in. How's that?
Well, and I've done so much work for me of, when I was about 15, the reason that I stopped binding was because I was slipping through the channels and there were these two women on a boat and they were escaping this female oppressive country. And one says to the other, I don't want to die hating the day that I was born a girl and always wondering why I had been punished so badly. The way that landed for me was I recognized that that's how I was living. I hated everything about being a girl. And I always felt like I was being punished for something that I didn't know.
If you were a girl, you wouldn't have been molested by that guy.
Right. Exactly. And so that was such a pivotal point moving forward that I lived my life differently. And I was like, this guy, he doesn't get to have control of my life. He means nothing. And I recognized that he wasn't going to get to continue punishing me. And I knew I wasn't meant to live like that. So it pushed me forward.
So something interesting that I've taken out of this conversation is Oprah was an inspiration for you.
Yeah.
And Oprah and I don't necessarily agree politically, but she's done a lot of good in this world. Yeah. So I got to give her full props for that. Seeing a movie about two women leaving an oppressive country and freeing the movie or whatever you want, whatever they did. What did they do?
I don't remember much of it. They were escaping this oppressive country and it was just that quote. Like literally,
she made that statement. Okay.
She made that statement and I like the timing that was all that I watched of that. And it just like hit me like a ton of bricks.
Well, it's good that you're intelligent enough to pick up on the messages or take messages from these different things. So that probably says a lot about your IQ and EQ. So congratulations on that. And unfortunately, you're probably that way because of the shit you went through. I mean, that which does not kill you makes you stronger, right? So it's just unfortunate that in order to get tough feet, you have to walk up a mountain barefoot. You know, that's a pisser. And that's why we have these conversations, to help people not have to go through that.
Yeah.
So you never confronted him. You never told your parents. Both your parents living?
Yes.
And are they still together?
Yes.
And are they healthier than they used to be?
No. I stopped talking to my parents 20 years ago. I realized just how the toxicity, I couldn't have that cycle in my life anymore. I didn't want to be a part of it. I wanted to be a mom. I've wanted to be a mom my whole life. And for me, it was come from a different sense of responsibility. And I was just like, I would never allow my child to put up with this, ever.
Okay. Was there a catalyst? Was there something that happened, or was this a realization that you had and that's why you distanced yourself from them?
I had started distancing myself from them because of I don't want my child to think that this is okay, that this is an okay way to be treated. I don't deserve it either.
Wait a minute.
So,
how were they treating you?
just still being a part of that toxic cycle.
Okay.
Where they would blow up and they would do something awful, and then it's the honeymoon phase where they're like, pretend like nothing happened and act like everything's going to be better. And
okay, now I need you to understand something. I am going to ask you some questions that may come off as judgmental or doubting or believing that you're wrong. Please know that that is not it, because I've never walked in your shoes. Yeah. Just know that this is really, really interesting, important stuff that I want to unpack. Mm-hmm. So I may challenge you, and please know that it's not coming from a negative place. No. It's coming from a good place, but I'm still going to challenge you, because as your friend, I feel like I'm just provoking thought. I'm not telling you how to live your life, but I'm going to ask you some questions that might be kind of hard. So they were being assholes. They were not being good parents. Okay. And I don't know to what degree. They weren't being physically abusive. Was there a lack of compassion and love that parents should have, and that's what you didn't like? Or were they being negative and down-putting and making your family feel bad? And that's it. I want you to think hard about that. You've got a lot of energy about your parents. We know that. Okay. Understandably so. And that energy can sometimes affect, well, if you're dragging that weight around with you, any opportunity to get rid of that weight, if you feel strong enough, is going to be a good thing. Yeah. But I'm going to challenge you about the fact that, or I'm going to challenge you by asking you questions like, could you have maintained a relationship with your parents, but had the power and confidence to control where that relationship went or how that relationship was, so that it did not negatively affect your children, but you could still have a relationship with your parents and they could still have a relationship with their grandparents? And you can teach them, hey, kids, what Gammy and Pappy just did is not what you're supposed to do. So please don't understand that was not okay. And I'm going to let them know that.
Well, and to be fair, I spent my whole childhood watching and thinking and weighing a lot of this. So for me, the place that I came to was, love should not be toxic and unhealthy.
No, it shouldn't.
And I let go of the belief that my parents would ever be anything but that.
So you've got expectations of how they should be.
Well, you always hold a hope.
Of course.
You put your parent, you want your parents to do well, and you want to have a good relationship with them. And that cycle was unhealthy for me. They have a lot of toxic and unhealthy behaviors and the way that they live their life. And it's really
a bad example to your children.
It's such a bad example to everyone. And I challenge people on the belief that just because somebody's family, that they get the right to be a part of your life.
I agree with that.
And I finally cared about myself enough to say, I don't want this. I don't want this to be a part of my experience anymore, because I know no matter all of these things that I've tried, there isn't a way for me to have a healthy relationship with my parents.
Okay, that pretty much just kind of just connected the dots for me. And congratulations for that. Have they tried to have a relationship with you since?
Yes.
They have.
In the beginning, when I first stopped talking to them, my dad would show up at my house and he'd wait outside my house for me. He'd leave notes, and I had offered to them, if they wanted to have a relationship with me, that I would pay for us to all do counseling together.
Cool.
But they don't want to do that.
Of course.
So it really just was them doing what they always did, which was making fun of me, telling me that I was stuck up, that I believed I was better than them. And it's like, none of that was true, but that was what they held on to.
Okay, so you said, okay, if you want to have a relationship with me and my children, it's going to have to be, I don't want to use the word conditional because that's typically a bad thing. It's got to be, it's got to be healthy, and it's got to be my way. And if you really truly care enough about that relationship, you're going to put your own bullshit aside. And now, how did they react to that? Because I feel like that's probably not something that they would be real good with, because then they'd be admitting that they were wrong.
Yeah, no, they just made fun of me. They just made fun of me for being dumb and thinking that therapy was gonna, like, they just made fun of it. They didn't care.
Well, that was well done for you. That was the right thing to do, because you have to teach people how to treat you, and you have to, what you allow becomes the standard, status quo, and you weren't okay allowing that anymore.
No, I wasn't. And I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but I had gone through infertility to have my child, and that whole journey of being an intentional parent before I even had children, there wasn't anything that I wouldn't be willing to do for my child. And if my child told me, hey, like, you have some really unhealthy and toxic behaviors, can we do therapy together?
But D'Leene, you've learned to think on that higher frequency, energy level, whatever, because of you went through, and they are the ones that. Now, let me ask you this: if they somehow saw this and it broke their heart, and they went, "Oh my God, we were shitty parents, and we want to have a relationship with our daughter and our grandchildren,"
tomorrow, I don't believe in holding grudges or holding anger. Like, I don't have same thing. Like, I don't feel the need to confront that guy, because for me, I've healed. I don't carry that with me. It's not a weight that I carry anymore, because I've let it go. It's a part of the journey that has built me to be who I am. It's empowered me to help other people, and I've recognized, like my parents did, they did the best that they could. It doesn't mean that it was okay, that what I went through, though.
Let me ask you this, and I want you to not answer quickly. I want you to dig deep, deep, deep.
Okay.
Deep. Have you forgiven your parents?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I really have. And
you have no more energy.
Not like, not in a way that is, it's more of, I hold a lot of compassion for them. I don't feel like the energy that I hold around it is weighted, or
it's not holding you down.
No.
From moving forward in your life.
No.
But of course, like any human being, you wish it had been different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I get that. My parents were good people, and I've forgiven them for their mistakes, but I will always wish that things had been different, because who knows where I'd be today if it hadn't. Then again, Who knows where I would have been today if they had?
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
I might be some lazy piece of shit sitting on the couch playing video games and eating Doritos.
Yep. Yeah.
So this was wow. That was a lot of good stuff. I appreciate that. I'm sorry you had to go through that for our watchers and listeners to get that lesson, but that was important.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go through this. It literally, absolutely just breaks my heart how many stories like that I've heard from people I know, obviously not necessarily on the show, but and you think, Jesus, if the parents would have known, if the parents could see like the Christmas Carol or whatever, the parents could look into the future 30 years
Yeah.
and see what their influence did to that child who they truly love. They just are too
Right.
fucked up and in their own world to really be good parents.
Yeah.
What would have happened and would they change? I know that, I mean, I lucked out. I've got 2 amazing kids, but I've made some mistakes. Yep. I've made some mistakes. But seeing how it affected them 10, 20 years later, and now I see that, not horribly so,
Yeah.
but there's certain little behaviors that I think, you got that from me, shame on me, because that might hinder your life or give you something negative or stifle your ability to develop and evolve because I put that thought in your head, or I made that. I'll tell you something that just kills me. Every time I ride with my son, he's such a little road rage screamer, you MFer, blah, 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 blah. And I say, son, stop, relax, calm down. It's not worth that energy.
Yeah.
And I think, guess where he learned that? And guess where I learned it?
Yeah.
And I truly believe, not all parents, I think there's plenty of parents in the world that really should not have children. They should be taken away from them because the kids will be better off in a loving home. But I think there's a lot of parents that get caught up in the day-to-day and their own shit. And if somebody said, hey, look at this screen, this is your kids in 20 years, and this is why, because of this behavior right here, I think they would change it.
No, 100%. I tell my son all the time. So he's a Montessori kid. And
what does that mean?
Montessori is
it's a private school or something.
It is. It's a hands-on model. But part of Montessori is teaching children the scientific method and the scientific process. So he knows what running an experiment is. And I was like, honestly, Brennan.
You mean a hypothesis, a controlled environment, experiment?
Yeah. I was like, honestly, Brennan, raising children is an ongoing experiment. We'll see how I did when you're like in your 30s. Yeah. Because I've always like, I'll sit with him and I was like, hey, like, what's working, what's not working, what am I doing well, what can I change? And we have this open dialogue because I tell him all the time, I said, you are gonna notice and look back on things and be like, hey, like I want to do that differently. And that's the goal, is that we do better than what happened before.
Yes, and stop cycles that affected us negatively.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Good.
Yeah. So I hope that by teaching him that it's an experiment, that he understands I make mistakes and I'm gonna. And but my goal is to do the best that I can for him and to be the best mom that I can be for him.
That's all you can do. And that means that you've evolved and learned something very powerful from the crap that happened to you. Yeah. Well, there's a lot more I want to talk about, but I want to tell you that I appreciate you sharing that with me. Is that, do you find it therapeutic to be able to share something that used to, I mean, of course, there's going to be negative energy from experiences like that, but being afraid to share it, I would think, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, being afraid to share it means it's still controlling me, but not being afraid to share it and not caring what other people think about it is very liberating. Yeah. And it kind of means that experience does not define me. I'm going to do what I want to do. And if I want to share with people, it's almost kind of feels good to say, I'm not afraid of this. It doesn't control me. Fuck you. You're in my past and I'm moving forward.
Yeah. For me, and we kind of talked about a little bit of this earlier, which is Oprah was the example for me. Because she shared the things that she went through, I knew that I could get through it. And I knew that it was all only temporary. I was going to grow up and time is going to go by. And so there was a lot of liberation in just knowing that. So then any of the experiences that I've gone through, I was just like, I want to make sure that I can help people. It's that whole climbing the mountain, showing others that it can be done. It feels less lonely when
It
you do
does.
that.
Yeah. Yes, you know you're not alone, especially, and that's what this show is about. So
Yeah.
people understand you're not alone. So real quick, and then I want to move on. If you were to meet somebody, maybe a young woman who's already moved to Oregon and not experiencing that anymore, but still carrying that energy and that emotion that comes with that type of traumatic experience, what would you tell that? What advice would you give that person?
I actually, this is part of what is with my book, Forged Through the Fire.
Hey, you got a book. Holy cow, is it done and published?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, then
yeah,
we got to talk about that, but go ahead.
yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of people had told me, you should write a book. And I was like, yeah, like, who am I to imposter syndrome,
Sure.
And also at the time, because I hadn't really looked back at what were the things that allowed me to be able to overcome what it was. I didn't know what the seeds were at the time. I was like, I don't know what I would write about. Um, I had gone through a couple of different leadership trainings, and I was listening to a podcast or something. And I, like, for the life of me, I've not been able to find this. So I don't know exactly how he said it, but he said, you have to be forged through fire in order to earn the right to say that you can do hard things.
Mm.
What that landed for me in such a heavy hitting way. And it also made me realize that part of the forging process is sitting in the fire, sitting with the pain, leaning into the experience. So for anyone who's going through any hard time and that still has a hold on you, it means that you haven't fully grieved it. You haven't fully expressed whatever that pain is. And so you really have to go back and sit in the fire for a little while with it before you can move through it.
So, and to take it one step even further, and this is a hard thing to hear when you're in your shit, but
Oh, yeah.
embrace it
Yes.
and know that the fire is making you stronger. And one day the fire will end or you'll be
Right.
taken out of the fire and you'll be ready for anything.
Yeah.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
Well, and I also really, there's the whole meet people where they are so you can help them get to where they're going. And a lot of times people try to be super encouraging when somebody is really in the pit of it. And then the way that you support somebody in the pit versus somebody who's kind of a little bit on the other side is going to be different, and allowing it to be okay that it sucks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is okay that it sucks, but it's not. But you have got to know in your heart of hearts that it will not always suck. You will come out the other side. And you have a lot of control over how long it will suck and when you'll get out of it.
It's all a choice.
Now, let me ask you a question. This is important. God, I want to just keep talking, but this is so good. What is your attitude? You went through therapy, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Lots of therapy.
Well, not so much on the therapy. I didn't really like therapy a whole lot, but I've done coaching and I consume a ton of books every year because I drive. So I was doing home health and hospice, putting 1,500 miles a week on my car. So the amount of books I can go through in a year is a lot. So lots of self-help stuff, Ed Milet, and many, many, many others.
Okay. All right, good.
Yeah.
Well, where I want to go with this is I went through something called PSI, Personal Success Institute.
Mm-hmm. I did
the basic.
Boston Breakthrough.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that, but it sounds like very similar. Okay. So I got many, many, many morsels, brilliant pearls of wisdom out of that because I did a 3-day, then I did a 7-day life success course, and then a 9-day men's leadership up on our ranch in Northern California. It was absolutely it was wonderful experiences for me. In the 3-day basic that they have all over the country, they talked about being a victim.
Yes.
And one thing, when you identify a mindset or a mentality or a way of thinking and you can label it, that means you can decide whether you want to be that or not. And when they said something about being a victim and how being a victim or being in the victim mentality will never, ever suit or it will never help positive things happen, you will only draw more negative stuff, except you may get praise from people, but all that's doing is reinforcing what you think you already are, which is a victim.
Right.
I was just going to ask you, because it sounds like you've done so much self-help, what your attitude is or what you learned about the whole victim mentality.
You can be a victim or a victor. You can't be both.
Oh, that was good. Victor. I never put victor and victim together.
Yeah.
Is that Latin or something? I mean, seriously,
yeah.
the root is vict, so it must be. That is absolutely wonderful. I've never heard that.
Well, and this is part of the looking back of like, there's so much for me that the things that I went through, I didn't feel like there was another choice. Because the alternative was just not living and sucked. So
No.
I didn't feel like I had a choice but to be a victor.
Okay, but and that goes back to, I think, I think every guest I've ever had here on the show that has talked about trauma and how it affected them. They all have that same root mentality, and that is, no, actually, being a victim is not a choice for me. It's not an option. I refuse to do that. So they always come out of the fire after being forged stronger. Man, anybody that watches this, really, watches several of these, they're going to see that, because the guests I have that mentality. It's just, bottom line is, look, I'm going to come out of this at some point, and I'm not going to let you get me down or beat me. I'm not going to, and I'm absolutely non-judgmental about people that commit suicide. I think it's horrific and terrible. Yeah. And maybe it is selfish, but I also understand what it's like to feel like wanting to do it if you don't believe that the rest of your life will ever be better than it is now. So I'm not negative. I understand that. But the people that just refuse to give up, they're too damn stubborn or hard-headed or intelligent or emotionally mature to say, no, that is not going to be my destiny. Yeah. And I'm going to keep on fighting no matter what. Yeah. And that is the mentality and the mindset. And if you're going to have negative energy about something that happened to you, decide to use that energy as fuel to make you move forward, get past it, or at least rise to the point where it does not negatively affect you. Or, look, so many successful people were driven by something negative, but it made them successful. Yeah. Hopefully, at some point in their lives, they can come to peace with that negativity and now not make it drive them anymore, make it sustain or maintain. But, it's still, how many ultra rich people do you know that are just fucking miserable? Yeah. They're unhappy. Their priorities are screwed up. They've got toxic relationships. They drink too much. They do drugs too much. They are high, what do they call it? High achievers. Yeah. But what drives them to be high achievers may be coming from an incredibly negative traumatic place. Mm-hmm. And the pain and the burden of that, though it drives them, it still weighs them down. Yeah. Imagine if they let go of that. Maybe they wouldn't achieve as much, but they'd have more peace and happiness.
Yeah. Or they could achieve more.
From a better place. Yeah. Well, life is definitely a journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you again for telling me that. So let's move into what else, D'Leene, what else is going on. I've learned that you now have a book called Forged from Fire.
Forged Through
Fire. Yeah. That is wonderful. Where can that be found?
On Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Forged Through Fire by D'Leene DeBoer, D''Leene DEBOER. That sounds like a good book. I would love to get a copy of it. Yeah, I'll trade you one of mine. That would be wonderful.
I think. No, I haven't ordered yours yet. So that's perfect.
Where is my book? Here's my book.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, so now that we got through that, you were forged through fire. Now you're tough as nails and ready to slice through all the bad guys and all the challenges in life. Besides your book, okay, so tell me what's going on. You're a frickin' registered nurse, okay? You're a competition dancer, you and your husband.
Yeah.
Tell me about that stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the good stuff that came out of that pain.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and there's a couple more layers that helped me to kind of get to this place. And Um, the one of the big impactful things was the car accident that I went through.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I wanted to be a mom my whole life, and I went through infertility and treatments to get pregnant with my first son. And at 39 weeks pregnant, we were T-boned by a cement truck on my side of the car. I was
At 39 weeks, what?
pregnant.
You were pregnant 39 weeks. How many months is that? I don't know.
That is 9 months.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. So I was having contractions. They just were irregular. So I was due any day,
Right,
basically.
right.
My uterus had ruptured on impact in that accident, and
Oh.
I was really not expected to survive. I had an extended extraction time because we were in a little 89 Toyota Corolla. So it was just like a tin can wrapped around me. And I was only 23 when that accident happened. Or wait, no, was I 22?
22 or
I was
20.
20. Yeah, right in there. And my whole life changed in the blink of an eye. And I woke up a week later not realizing fully what had happened.
And they'd taken the baby.
Yeah. So, and they had removed my uterus, and I had a lacerated spleen. And the spleen is really important to things like all of the respiratory viruses and things that we have going around. So that has impacted my career post-COVID in a very dramatic way. This last year, I have stepped away from the bedside. I was at the bedside for 27 years.
Bedside being a nurse.
So I was CNA for a long part of it. And
What is that?
Certified nursing assistant.
Okay.
And then I became a medical assistant, and I just kind of worked my way up through, and then became an RN. And I switched over to doing home health and hospice, but this last year I was sick every week because my immune system is just, the older I get, the harder it's going to be for me. So it's created a lot of different moves in my career and in my life, and everything that allowed me to get through a lot of the other stuff has allowed me to get through this part of my journey, because I love being a nurse. I would truly volunteer to be a nurse. I love taking care of people, and I'm a really good nurse. So it's been really hard to let that go.
Why did you let it go?
Because of being sick all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I physically can't, my body can't handle it. And so that's where going in this direction, it has allowed me to lean more into the dance stuff and into writing, and given me outlets that have filled that a bit of it.
Good.
So
Good.
Yeah, my husband and we met dancing.
How long ago?
Let's see. So we met 10 years ago. I was actually married at the time to my first husband. So James and we were friends. I'm demisexual, which means that I don't really hold romantic feeling. It's like a checkbox. There's a lot of things that have to happen for me to feel romantically attracted to somebody. So he was not on my radar in that arena at all. And I didn't know that he had feelings for me. He was always respectful. And when I went through my divorce, I wasn't interested in dating, because there was just, when you know your self-worth and you know the direction that you're going, I just didn't have any time or interest in anybody who wasn't ready to go there as well. And so I was just like, I got on the dating apps. I dated 2 times. I was just like, this is such a waste of time. Like it was such an awful experience that I was just like, whatever. I was like, if I can't be friends with somebody, if we're not friends, and it's not going anywhere, I'm not interested in dating. And so James sat me down and told me about his feelings for me. And I was like, we can hang out more. And so we hung out more. And I was like, well, if your goal is marriage and lifetime commitment, then like we can date now. So we started dating, and he's been amazing. It's been really amazing. And that has led into us opening our own dance studio and teaching couples. helping them deepen intimacy and reignite passion through dance connection. So we run couples retreats, and
That's cool.
it's really nice.
So you have couples therapy through dance.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And you compete?
Mhm.
And you said you'll be out here in June competing.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah, I'm excited.
That's very cool. Okay, so you gave up nursing because you were getting sick. You wrote a book. You have a dance studio. You travel around competing in dance.
Mhm.
What do you do? I mean, when do you have time to sleep exactly?
I'm like a 5-hour sleeper, so not much.
So you're good to go.
Yeah,
You get a lot of
good.
deep sleep.
It's the ADHD. It helps me.
Sure. Sure, you can do a lot of
I
things
can do
at
a lot of
once.
things. Yeah.
So what is next for D'Leene?
Well, my husband and I, we're the sandwich generation. So
The what?
we're the sandwich generation, which means that we're raising a family and taking care of older parents.
Oh, I gotcha. Didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. So my husband's parents are amazing and we love them so much. And so we're working on just being set up where we get to all kind of live on the same property together. And then that way, when they need help or anything, we're there for
That's
them.
awesome.
Yeah.
That is very, very cool.
Yeah.
What, not that it matters, but you come from such a diverse cultural, racial background. What is he?
Mostly English, a little.
He's a white boy.
Or he's totally a white boy. He has a little bit of what was it, Nigerian?
Well, that's not very white.
Yeah, but it's like such a small percentage.
Oh, see,
I tease him I tease him all the time though. I was like, I swear that's the reason why you have no body hair, because everything else is old white dudes that are hairy.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
So you guys are just you're living in Oregon still. And
love Oregon.
okay. And you're an animal person like me.
Yeah.
And you're a rescue person.
Yep.
That makes a lot of
Many
sense.
animals from rescues.
That makes a lot of sense, given your upbringing and your compassion towards those who could use some help.
Right.
So I get that. Okay, very cool. My little pug Oliver, who we got a couple months ago, was a rescue, and he was abused by a male for sure. Probably had kids in the family because he can be super, super sweet, but he was definitely afraid of males and loud noises and everything like that. And
so you're his therapy.
I am his therapy, and he's my therapy.
Yeah.
And he's been wonderful for my relationship with Heather.
Yeah.
Like, he's our little baby boy that we can take care of together. So, we're loving the trauma out of his world, and it's working. He is 85% better than he was, and it's only been 2 months. So
it's such a beautiful thing to see as they feel safe.
Yeah. I've got some questions that I always like to ask my guests.
Yeah.
But first one I definitely want to ask you is, what are you not very good at?
A lot of things. Because of my ADHD, I interrupt a lot. And sometimes I have to have people repeat to me because I
are thinking about something else instead of what they're saying to you.
Well, I'm thinking about what they're saying to me, but it's that whole, like, all of a sudden that leads into all these other thoughts and questions that I have for them while they're talking to me. And so it's a lot to navigate with my brain sometimes, which is also why I love taking medication, because it's really supportive in that.
Are you on
Adderall? That's what I take.
Yeah, Adderall.
And I've been really lucky because I've had no side effects from it. And
that's good.
It's just been super helpful.
Well, it's good for some people, but it's good for those people that need it. It's not so good with people. I'm ADHD, but I'm ADD to some degree. I've always been. I struggle to focus on things for very long because I get bored. But I had gotten a prescription at one point, and I started taking it, and man, I was laser focused. But it made me a little bit on edge, and I'm kind of wound up tight as it is, so I didn't need any more. I was a little bit grumpy and short fused, and I realized that, and I thought, you know what, it would be better for myself and everyone around me probably if I guess I can focus a little bit less, but it'll be more pleasant, because I get a little intense, you know. Okay, so your ADHD. What else?
Let's see. So my husband, he tends to be really good at a lot of the things that I'm not good at.
That's a good
way. The way that we describe it is that I'm the human golden retriever and he's the cat. So I'm really extroverted and have a lot of energy. I love people and I get super excited. And he's the calm, really
More reserved.
really reserved. He takes a lot of things in and processes a lot of information, and so he keeps me grounded and calm, and then I bring him on the side.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. It's
That's a
really
good
great.
compatibility. So
Mhm.
you guys kind of help each other go towards a middle ground where
Yes.
where you both might be better off.
Yeah.
I love that.
Right. And I'm also I'm not what I've learned about myself is that I could work as a nurse in a building because my focus was taking care of other people. But now that I've been transitioned to sort of working office type jobs, I can't be in a box all day. I'm not good at it.
Mm.
I am not your normal 9 to 5, like, can work in an office building every day. It literally makes me crazy.
I would imagine nature is very grounding for you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
I
can
work
see-
outside as much as possible.
I can see that, and I feel like people, ADHD and people that may have had some trauma, for some reason, for me anyway, I'm like, I bought this boat because I went down and hung out on my buddy's boat for one evening, and I was around water and I was around nature.
Yes.
And when I left, I was a different person.
Yep.
And I thought, I need that in my life. And it was such a good thing to do. And nature it can suck the stress and the anxiety right out of you.
Yeah. Well, and it's there's a lot of science behind that because it's an exchange of energy and ions. So it makes total sense.
So you're saying I need to spend more time on my boat.
Yes.
Okay, I like that. And that's
yeah.
prescribed from somebody who knows.
Prescribed from a nurse.
From a nurse. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to submit.
It's so I can care plan, and I care plan your boat time.
I love that. Can you write me a prescription to give to my boss?
Yes.
Okay, my boss being my girlfriend.
I'll write your official care plan.
I appreciate that. What is your favorite book and why?
Gosh, I have so many. There really are a lot. I would say my top 2 that have been really profound is From Good to Great.
Oh, Good to Great and Built to Last by Jim Collins. Amazing. But those are business books.
Yeah, but leadership is interpersonal relationships.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then Leadership and Self-Deception.
I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, that's a really good book. So I'm trying to remember who the author is.
Leadership and Self-Deception.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So, and it really, he talks a lot about the self-deception piece, which is, so I don't know if you know about lean methodology and walking the gambit and having the people do the work, tell you how to do the jobs better.
No.
It's a Toyota model and method. So as a CEO, don't pretend that you know how to make those jobs better or more efficient. You go to the people doing the work and have them tell you. So that book is really just the don't fool yourself in thinking that you know better. They're the experts. You hired them because they're the experts. Essentially that hire good people, put them in the right seat on the bus and let them do their job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. That sounds like something my president would do. And that's why I hired him, because he's better at stuff like that than me. I would tell my people, this is how you need to do your job, even though I'm not the one doing it every day.
Right.
I just have certain standards, but those standards may be affected by the job. So that is better. You go and say, this is what I'd like to see happen, but how can we make that happen since you're doing it? Oh, I love that.
100%. And then The Anomaly Mindset by Sandy Krakowski.
Anomaly Mindset.
So that book was so eye-opening for me. It's a lot of, it really is around business and leadership and owning yourself and allowing yourself to be an anomaly.
Anomaly Mindset. Mm-hmm. I don't even know how to spell anomaly.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. Wow. Good. All right.
So
Anomaly Mindset.
It was.
And what was the other one?
Leadership and Self-Deception.
Leadership and Self-Deception. Mm-hmm. That sounds intriguing.
It's so good. So good. But she really gives you permission to whatever your unique self is, that is what your people want. There's so many others, but it just, for me, that was a more personal, impactful one of being okay with my differences, and that
owning them.
yeah, like my struggles with ADHD, and because I care about people and I care about how I impact people. And so sometimes the things that I struggle with most with my ADHD can be hard on the people around me. And that is really hard for somebody who cares about how you impact other people. And so she really gave me an outlet of how do I own that and allow it to also be the thing that also makes me an impactful person.
Positive driving force.
Right.
Well, you have read some good books. I like that. Here's one that I can't wait to hear.
Yeah.
Who would play you in the movie of your life?
Oh, gosh. That's a really good question. I would think somebody like Anne Hathaway, or somebody who has like a really deep emotional like connection to themselves.
I could see that. I could see her playing you. I'm a big fan of Anne, and my girlfriend doesn't understand it, but I just think she's, my God. Let's see. I was thinking, first of all, do you know who Rebecca Ferguson is?
I don't think so.
She's actually Swedish, but you would think she's, I don't know, from somewhere Hungarian or something, just because her accent. She's in the series Silo right now, but she's like kind of an action star. And I saw you without your sweater on, and you're yoked. So she's kind of yoked. So that's the first, and she's short like you. So that's the first person I thought of.
That's awesome.
So Anne Hathaway. Yeah, that's a good choice. She's a rock star. So that's cool that you would choose somebody that amazing. Good for you. Good for you. I love that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
That I work on cars and I do ballet.
You work on cars and do ballet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because my dad said that women aren't capable of doing everything that men can do. So I made sure I could do more.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And you do ballet. Yeah. Well, I'm surprised to hear that about you, but now that I think about it, no, I'm really not that surprised. Now, after the last hour, I'm definitely not surprised about that. Here's good one. Now, you said you sleep well. 5 hours you sleep. What keeps you up at night?
Oh, gosh. It's always, it's always really just about setting up my family for success. And my husband and I, my car accident, and I lost my uterus. And I still I want to have more children.
You said more children.
I want to have more children.
It's from the first one that you were unable to.
So I'd had my car accident. We did surrogacy, and I lost my second son at 6 months gestation. A year later.
Wait. They took your uterus. Mm-hmm. How can you have a baby without a uterus?
I have one ovary. They were able to save one.
But doesn't the baby grow inside the uterus?
Well, we put it in another person's uterus.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
And so we did in vitro with a surrogate. So the surrogate is another person carrying my baby.
Right.
And then a year later, I lost my second son at 6 months. And my son, who's now 15, was born a year after that.
So you have a child.
I do, but I want more. And so part of having more means that James and I get to push ourselves to the limits to make as much money as we can so that we can grow our family. And
what about adoption?
I'm 41 now, so it's not any cheaper.
No, I'm not.
But yeah, it's not any cheaper, and it's just a different process. So I mean, if we aren't able to do in vitro and have a surrogate, that's absolutely there. But the level of commitment's not different to do. It's actually, in a lot of ways, we're more guaranteed to have our baby if we do in vitro and a surrogate versus adoption. There's a lot of different things that can fall through, and a friend of mine did that, and they have laws now where if the parent, the intended or the biological parent can change their mind. So she got to keep her daughter for 2 months, and then the mom wanted her back. And I don't know if I can go through that.
No.
Really. So I mean, I know I can handle anything that comes at me, but I would like to not set myself up to go through more.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah,
that would
that's
be
a
a
lot.
lot.
That's a lot.
So is that what keeps you up at night?
It's one of the things. Just making sure that I'm providing for my family and that my family's taken care of. It's the most important thing to me.
Sounds like something you learned from your mom.
Yeah. Yeah, very much.
I'm glad your mom was such a strong figure.
Too.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I hope that you reconcile with your parents.
What I see happening over time is that my dad definitely is not going to outlive my mom. And she is a different person when he's not around. So I see there's a stronger potential that she will be open to a healthy space
Without him around. So you're hoping they get divorced?
I don't think that they're going to get divorced. I
think he'll die.
She, and this is something that I have overcome, which is she's loyal to a fault. For me, it's why I was in my first marriage for so long. It was, they don't teach you about narcissistic abuse. And I'm not saying that my ex was a narcissist, but he had narcissistic abuse tendencies. And I stayed in it because I was so committed that I entered this marriage, I made this choice, and I'm going to do anything I can to make it work and make it better. So I don't see her ever. She hasn't ventured out to build her own self-worth or gain. So I just don't see her ever coming to that place where she makes a stand.
Once he passes, she can finally feel like she can be herself on her own.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you had your I've made it moment?
Oh, lots of times. I think that when you're a person who is really a lifelong learner and growth mindset person, you're always like hitting I've made it, and then you're like, where's the next where's the next thing? And holding my son for the first time, I remember just holding him and being like, this is what mommies do, because for so long I had been a mom and I didn't have my baby. And I've becoming an international speaker and nursing educator and helping healthcare providers fill the gap in child and infant loss and how to support families, and meeting my husband when we had started hanging out more, and I had hit that moment where I realized that I had met my person. I mean, that was, what can you ask
That's
for?
a big one.
You know,
That's a big one, because now you have a partner.
I have a partner, yeah. And then he and I, we've published our book this year. It's called And So We Dance.
It's what?
And So We Dance.
And So We Dance.
You know the song by Leanne Womack, I Hope You Dance.
Maybe.
Well, in it's really just about overcoming. And I hope you dance through whatever the journey is that life hands to you. So when I lost my second son, I got a flower tattooed on my foot recently. But I wanted to get this tattoo for a long time. It's all three of my son's birth flower, and it says ... and so she danced. Because for me, that was part of my healing, was through movement. And so getting to publish that with my husband and us getting to dance through this life together has been, and I made it moment, like ongoing. And then seeing my son with his parents, because his parents are like the kind of grandparents that any kid could ever want. And I'm so thankful that my son gets to have that. And it just means a lot.
Wait, your son gets to have
grandparents that like everybody should have. They're amazing. My husband's parents.
Oh, okay. You threw me off for a second.
Sorry.
Your husband's okay.
My husband's
Wonderful.
parents,
Well,
yeah.
then they made him, and he's a great guy.
Exactly. So it just, I think there's lots of sadness and happiness exist together. I think people get in this illusion that you have to be one or the other.
Mm.
There isn't a day or a moment that goes by that I don't think about my sons, and that there isn't that sadness that lives in there, because I'm wrong to them, and I always love them, and I'm always going to miss them. It doesn't mean that I'm not also happy or
Sure.
grateful. And I think talking more to people about allowing those spaces to coexist and how do we do that is really important.
Yeah. I wasn't going to ask you this one, but now I am. How do you practice? Because I feel like you probably do it a lot. I want to know how, and I want our viewers and listeners to know. How do you practice gratitude daily? And if so, how? Or how do you practice gratitude?
When I was going through the kind of the initial phase of my divorce, partway into that, my best friend took her life.
Oh,
And it was like the first time that I struggled to get back up. All I could do was take care of my son. And I just was so devastated by the divorce, and it was so vile. And then my friend being gone. I reached out to a friend of mine who does life coaching, and she's an author and everything. And I just reached out to her for help. And so she's like, I want you to be relentless about gratitude right now. And I want you to be relentless about your mindset and everything that you're consuming. So she sent me all kinds of links, and I consumed all of it, which was, not only doing gratitude journals, but also morning meditations and evening meditation, and just positive affirmations, and being very intentional about the things that I was feeding my brain, because everything else in life was so hard. That has become a second nature now. I don't actively do a journal anymore, but I always notice like the moments that I'm really grateful for. But in the beginning, a gratitude journal is so helpful, and a win journal, keeping track of your wins.
yeah. I've never heard of a gratitude journal, but that makes a lot of sense. And actually, that's a very smart tool to remind you to do it, because it's really easy to get caught up and overwhelmed by the shit in this world, the shit that exists and the shit that happens to you.
Yeah. Especially
And
when you're in it.
when you're in it,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, especially. And depending on your mindset, if you're in a victim mentality, you're never really feeling very grateful. One thing I learned, and it wasn't that long ago, but I brought it up a couple of times on the show because it means so much to me, is it's gratitude. It's funny with gratitude and despair, gratitude and jealousy, gratitude and anger, gratitude and sadness. They cannot exist in the same place.
Right.
They occupy a space by themselves. You can be sad. I mean, well, I don't know. I guess you can still be grateful. I'm sad that I lost my mother, but I'm grateful for the time that I had him. But if you're in a state of gratitude, and I practiced this before, I remember sitting there just pissed off and upset and sad, and I remembered what I was told, and I said, okay. It was probably an audio tape or something. I said, okay, start naming the things that you're grateful for. And I named the things: the girlfriend and my animals and my business and my employees and my friends and my home and my car and my toys and blah, 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 blah. When I was done, I felt this much taller.
Yeah.
Because while I was being grateful, none of those other things slipped into my consciousness.
Yeah.
I was only grateful. And it changed everything about my attitude, my mood, my outlook. And I went, oh my God, that's powerful.
Yeah.
So you seem like somebody that practices gratitude regularly.
For me, it's like I said, I'm the human golden retriever, so I'm pretty easily excited for a run. Like,
You're always happy.
I really am. And I don't know, I think I always am delighted in the little things. One of my friends, she's a pastor, and she does youth camps and stuff. And she was telling the kids, she's like, because they're being teenagers, and And she's like, well, like you can go outside and you can look up the sky and you can be like, well, there's the sky. Or you can be like, there's the sky.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's kind of how I live my life is I'm just like how awesome is it?
Yeah. Beautiful and wonderment and holy cow. Well, that's a very, very good way to live your life. Last question. Where do people find you and your books and your social media? How do people get to follow this wonderful ball of energy?
Well, the easiest way is coupleswhodance.com. Also Facebook/coupleswhodance.
And for the spelling again, because it's unusual, it's D''L,
capital L,
capital L,
EENE.
EENE, and then DeBoer, DEB like boy, OER.
Correct. Yeah.
And so coupleswhodance.com. Your book is Forged Through Fire.
Forged Through the Fire.
Forged Through the Fire on Amazon. And I think social media. Do you post a lot on social media?
I do. Mainly, again, under Couples Who Dance, we do a lot more posting on that. I have my Facebook page, which is my name. So no apostrophe because systems don't accept it.
Sure.
But I do post pretty regularly. Yeah.
Good. Well, I feel like a lot of people are going to want to follow you now that they've heard or seen this, to watch your constant progression to success and happiness. Because you're certainly an inspiration to people who have been through what you've been through. Because the bottom line is this shit does not define us any more than we allow it to. And we can make a conscious decision to say, you know what, that sucked, and I'm pissed that it happened to me, and I have a right to be pissed or sad or any of the other many probably emotions that you go through. Violation. I mean, so many negative things. And, stuffing them is not a good thing.
No.
Processing them through them is how you truly get through that stuff. And you may not I don't like to say get over it, though.
No.
I like to say get through it, because getting over it is almost like not acknowledging that it happened and moving on. And
which just carries it with you.
It does.
Yeah.
And look, it didn't happen to us. It happened for us.
Right.
Which is the most powerful and empowering way to deal with diversity and challenges and heartbreak, because that means you're owning it. You're not saying it never happened to me. You're not like my mother was. She had multiple personality disorder because she went through the exact same thing that you did, and that her personalities were created to protect her when that was not healthy either. You become empowered by owning that it happened and not allowing it to control you. So it happened for you, not to you. And I just think that's the opposite of victim mentality.
Exactly.
The victor mentality.
And it is exactly. And you touched on something that I'm really passionate about, which is how words and sayings kind of get perverted over time, and people overuse them and they use them at inappropriate times. And one of the sayings that I just cannot stand, especially after going through the loss of my two sons, is everything happens for a reason. It
triggers you.
It triggers me because it is so it's not a victor mentality to look at it that way. Instead,
blind acceptance.
Exactly. Instead, I can take anything that happens to me and I can make it mean something. I can make meaning from it.
Yeah.
It's not happening to me, and I'm not waiting for somebody to show me a reason. I'm creating a reason. And this is also why I really love the analogy of being forged through the fire, because you have to sit and get smoldering. You have to sit in whatever that is, and then you get to reshape yourself in the journey through, and you decide at every step what that's going to look like and how it's going to end out.
Great advice and very inspirational. D'Leene, I want to thank you so much for sharing everything you did today. I appreciate you, trusting me and my audience to be able to talk about that sort of thing. And just know that somebody, I promise we'll probably never hear from them, though it would be nice if we did. Somebody is going to hear this, and it's going to help enrich their life. It's going to help them think about gratitude. It's going to empower them and give them strength to overcome things that they may have otherwise struggled with had they not heard this, like you heard the Oprah and like you heard the movie about owning being a female and not being afraid of it and not hiding it. And you may have just done that for more than one person. So
Thank you so much for having me. It means a lot, and I love your show because you are giving lots of different examples and lots of different life experiences because people are able to see themselves in those situations, and it's
Yep.
really powerful.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Maybe we should have you on in another year because it'll be exciting to see what else you've accomplished in the next 12 months.
Exactly. We've got a lot.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank
you
you
again.
I appreciate it. I really do.
Until next time, please connect with me on your favorite social media platform where you can follow me on my personal journey